Judge Eleanor Matthews had presided over hundreds of custody hearings in her 15 years on the family court bench, but something about today's case made her uneasy. 6-year-old Michael Carson's file sat open before her, its details troubling, in ways she couldn't quite pinpoint. The boy sat quietly beside his court-appointed guardian, his small frame almost lost in the oversized courtroom chair. Unlike most children his age in these proceedings, he seemed unnaturally aware of his surroundings, his dark eyes constantly scanning the room. Before we jump back into the video, let us know where you're watching from, and if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe because I have something really special for you tomorrow. And now back to the video. Your Honor, Richard Bennett, the state's attorney, rose to speak. We're here today to finalize the termination of parental rights for James Carson, who has been deemed unfit due to abandonment and negligence. Judge Matthews studied the father's empty chair. James Carson hadn't attended any of the previous hearings, hadn't responded to court. Summons hadn't made any attempt to maintain contact with his son since his wife's death 18 months ago. The state recommends immediate termination of rights, Bennett continued, allowing Michael to be placed for adoption with the foster family, who have provided him excellent care these past 6 months. The Fosters sat in the front row, John Daum and Marie, picture-perfect potential adoptive parents with glowing recommendations from social services. Marie smiled encouragingly at Michael, but the boy didn't respond. Ms. Taylor, the judge addressed Michael's guardian ad litem. Do you have anything to add? Sarah Taylor shuffled her papers, looking troubled. Your Honor, while the Fosters are excellent candidates, I have some concerns about— He's not dead. The small voice cut through the courtroom like a knife. Michael had stood up, his expression intense with a certainty that seemed beyond his years. My dad's not dead, he repeated more firmly. He's coming back. Judge Matthews leaned forward, studying the boy carefully. Michael, your father hasn't been in contact for over a year. The court has made every effort to— He's on a mission, Michael insisted. He told me to be brave, to keep our secret, but I can't let you give me away. He's coming back. The certainty in his voice gave everyone pause. This wasn't the typical denial of a child unable to accept abandonment. There was something else in his tone, something that made Judge Matthews's instincts, honed by years on the bench, prickle with awareness. Your Honor, Bennett interjected, the child's wishes, while touching, don't change the legal reality. James Carson has effectively abandoned his parental responsibilities. But Michael wasn't finished. His next words would change everything. About the case. About what everyone thought they knew. He's not who you think he is, the boy said quietly. And neither am I. The courtroom fell silent after Michael's declaration. Judge Matthews studied the boy with renewed interest, noting details she'd overlooked before, his perfect posture, his tactical positioning with clear views of all exits, the way his eyes constantly tracked movement in the room. Michael, she said gently, would you like to explain what you mean? Before he could answer, the courtroom doors opened. A woman in a sharp business suit strode in, flanked by 2 men who practically screamed federal agent. Your Honor, the woman announced, displaying credentials that made the bailiff step back. I'm Special Agent Diana Cooper, FBI. This hearing needs to be suspended immediately. On what grounds? Bennett demanded, but his voice wavered at the sight of the federal badges. National security, Cooper replied simply. She approached the bench, handing Judge Matthews a sealed envelope. Your eyes only, Your Honor, as the judge read the documents. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock. She looked at Michael with new understanding. Clear the courtroom, she ordered. Everyone except the boy, his guardian, and the federal agents. The Fosters protested. But the agent's presence made it clear this wasn't optional. Once the room was secured, Cooper turned to Michael. You did well maintaining cover, she said kindly. But your father's mission has changed. We need to move you. Is he okay? Michael's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly, showing the 6-year-old beneath the unusual maturity. He's alive, Cooper confirmed. But his deep cover operation was compromised. That's why he couldn't maintain contact through the arranged channels. Judge Matthews interrupted. Would someone please explain what's going on? This was supposed to be a simple custody hearing. Nothing about this case is simple, Cooper replied. James Carson isn't just Michael's father. He's one of our most effective undercover operatives, infiltrating a terrorist network that's been targeting critical infrastructure. Sarah Taylor, who had been quietly observing, suddenly spoke up. That's why Michael's behavior patterns seemed off. He's been trained. The boy nodded. Dad taught me what to watch for, how to act normal while staying alert. Said it was like a game, but I knew it was real. The abandonment was a cover, Cooper explained. James had to appear to be a grieving widower who'd given up on life, making him a perfect recruitment target for the organization. But he couldn't risk them discovering Michael's existence. So he just left his son? Judge Matthews' tone was sharp with disapproval. No, Michael said firmly. He left me with a mission. To be brave, to maintain cover, to trust that he'd come back. His voice dropped to a whisper. But they were going to give me away. I couldn't let that happen. Cooper nodded approvingly. You made the right call, breaking cover. Your father's operation is in its final phase. We can't risk you being placed with a civilian family right now. The judge leaned back, processing this dramatic shift in what she'd thought was a routine case. Where's his father now? That's classified, Cooper replied. But I can tell you he's exposed a plot that could have cost thousands of lives, and part of his success was knowing his son was safe, playing his role perfectly. Michael sat straighter at this praise, but his eyes showed his worry. When can I see him? Soon, Cooper promised. But first, we need to get you to a secure location. The people your father is investigating, they're starting to ask questions about his past. Judge Matthews watched as Michael immediately shifted into what was clearly practiced protocol, gathering his few possessions with efficient movements that no 6-year-old should know. I'm still an officer of the court, she reminded Cooper. I need some assurance that this is really in the child's best interest. Cooper handed her another document. Your security clearance has been temporarily elevated. Read it all, Your Honor. Understand why this boy and his father have sacrificed so much. As she read, the judge's face grew pale. The scope of what James Carson had uncovered, the lives at stake, the reason he'd had to maintain such absolute separation from his son. It was staggering. Michael stood ready by the door, his bearing showing the training that lay beneath his child's exterior. He'd played his role perfectly until the moment he'd had to choose between maintaining cover and losing his father forever. 3 words. He's not dead. Had exposed an operation so classified that even having this conversation put them all at risk. But they'd also revealed something else. The extraordinary bond between a father and son who'd sacrificed everything to protect others. We need to move, Cooper said urgently, checking her phone. They're getting closer. The hunt was about to begin. They barely made it out of the courthouse before everything went wrong. Agent Cooper's phone buzzed with an urgent alert as they reached the parking garage. 3 vehicles approaching, she reported tersely. They moved faster than we anticipated. Michael immediately shifted closer to the wall, making himself a smaller target. His movements were practiced, automatic, the behavior of a child who'd grown up learning to survive. They found my dad? He asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. No, Cooper assured him. But they've started backtracking his life, looking for leverage. Someone in the courthouse must have talked. Judge Matthews, who had insisted on accompanying them until Michael was safely transferred, watched in amazement as the 6-year-old calmly pulled a small device from his backpack. Dad's emergency protocol, he explained, activating what looked like a child's toy but was clearly something more sophisticated. It sends a signal to his backup team. Cooper nodded approvingly. Your father taught you well, but right now we need to move. They're blocking our planned exit route. Through the garage's entrance, they could see black SUVs taking up strategic positions. Men in suits emerged, their movements betraying military training. Not just hired muscle, Cooper observed. These are professional operators. The organization doesn't take chances, Michael said, using the term like he'd heard it many times before. Dad said they recruit ex-special forces, intelligence agents. The sound of footsteps echoing through the garage spurred them into motion. Cooper's team split up, creating diversions while she led Michael and the judge toward a service exit. They're looking for a federal team protecting a child, Cooper explained as they moved. So we don't act like one. She quickly shed her suit, jacket messing up her hair. Judge Matthews caught on, removing her judicial robes to reveal civilian clothes beneath. Within seconds, they looked like a mother and grandmother taking a child home from court. Michael played his part perfectly, skipping along while maintaining perfect awareness of their surroundings. He'd done this before, Judge Matthews realized. Practiced appearing normal while in extreme danger. They were almost to the exit when a voice rang out. "Federal agents? Stop where you are!" "They're not feds," Michael whispered. "Real agents wouldn't announce themselves in an unsecured location." Cooper smiled grimly. "Smart boy. Your father taught you their tells." The fake agents were closing in from multiple directions. Cooper's team was engaged elsewhere in the garage, buying them time but leaving them without immediate backup. That's when Michael did something unexpected. He started crying, loud, dramatic sobs that echoed through the garage. "Want my daddy," he wailed, putting on a perfect display of a child's tantrum. "You said we'd get ice cream after court." The approaching men hesitated. Their intel said they were looking for a professionally escorted child, not a kid having a meltdown with his family. Cooper caught on immediately. "Michael, honey, we'll get ice cream after we pick up your sister from school." Her voice carried the natural frustration of a parent dealing with a difficult child. Judge Matthews joined in, playing the mediating grandmother. Maybe just a small cone. Their pursuers pulled back, obviously uncertain. The scene before them didn't match their target profile. Michael kept up his act until they reached Cooper's backup vehicle, an ordinary minivan complete with car seats and family stickers. Only when they were safely away did he stop crying. "Dad called it social camouflage," he explained, his composure returning. "People see what they expect to see." Cooper navigated through city traffic, taking a complex route to shake any surveillance. "Your father used that same technique to infiltrate the organization, made them see what they expected, a broken man looking for purpose." "Is that why he had to stay away so long?" Michael asked quietly. "To make them believe?" "Yes, Cooper," replied gently. "The deeper he got into their operation, the more dangerous any contact became. But he never stopped watching over you." Judge Matthews listened in amazement as they discussed protocols and procedures no child should know. Michael Carson wasn't just a boy who missed his father. He was an integral part of one of the most sophisticated undercover operations she'd ever encountered. "We're being followed," Michael suddenly announced, spotting something in the side mirror that even Cooper had missed. "Multiple vehicles," Cooper confirmed. "They're not giving up easily." "Dad said they never do," Michael replied grimly. "But neither do we." The chase was about to begin, and a 6-year-old boy's life hung in the balance. But looking at Michael's determined face, Judge Matthews realized something important. This child wasn't just a victim to be protected. He was his father's son, trained and ready for exactly this moment. The organization thought they were hunting a helpless boy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 cars back, black sedan, Michael reported calmly from his car seat. "They're using a rolling surveillance pattern. Dad taught me how to spot it." Cooper checked her mirrors, impressed. The boy's situational awareness was extraordinary. "Any others?" "Silver SUV 2 lanes over," he continued. "They're trying to box us in without being obvious. But they made a mistake." "What's that?" Judge Matthews asked, still amazed by this child's capabilities. "They're too coordinated. Regular traffic is random. When cars move together like that, it means they're working as a team." Cooper smiled grimly. "Your father taught you well. Now, remember what else he taught you about being followed?" Michael's face lit up with understanding. The best escape isn't the fastest. It's the one they don't realize is happening. Exactly. Cooper took a casual turn into a shopping center parking lot. Time to change the game. They pulled up to a busy department store. Cooper reached into a hidden compartment, producing shopping bags and different clothes for everyone. Quick change protocol, she instructed. Michael, you know what to do. The boy was already in motion, efficiently changing into clothes that made him look completely different. Gone was the court appearance outfit, replaced by casual play clothes and a baseball cap. Judge Matthews watched in amazement as Cooper transformed their appearances with practiced ease. Within minutes, they looked like a completely different family out for a shopping trip. The van? Michael asked, understanding the protocol. Another team will drive it out as a decoy, Cooper explained. We're taking a different route. They exited through the store's other entrance, blending perfectly with the shopping crowd. Michael held the judge's hand, playing the role of excited grandson while maintaining perfect awareness of their surroundings. 2 watchers by the north entrance, he whispered. But they're looking for the people who went in, not us. Cooper led them to a pre-positioned car, a modest family sedan with car seats and scattered toys. Nothing like the vehicle their pursuers. We're tracking. Dad used to make this a game, Michael explained as they drove away. Spot the surveillance, identify the patterns, find the escape routes. I got ice cream when I did it right. Judge Matthews shook her head in wonder. Most children his age are learning to ride bikes. He had to learn this, Cooper said quietly. His father's work, the people he's investigating, they wouldn't hesitate to use a child as leverage. Michael's face grew serious. The organization hurt other families. Dad's trying to stop them. That's why we have to be careful. Through carefully planned routes and multiple vehicle changes, they made their way to what Cooper called a safe house, though it looked like any other suburban. Home. Clear, Michael announced, after checking the security indicators his father had taught him to recognize. No signs of compromise. Inside, Cooper established secure communications, while Michael did something that finally made him look his age. He pulled a worn stuffed bear from his backpack. Dad gave him to me the night he left, he explained to the judge. Said as long as I had Bear, I had a piece of him with me. Judge Matthews noticed something about the toy's weight. The way Michael handled it so carefully. There's more to that bear than stuffing, isn't there? Michael nodded. It's part of Dad's insurance policy, in case anything goes wrong. That's why the organization wants me so badly. They know Dad would have left me a way to expose them if something happened to him. Cooper returned with update. Your father's operation is entering its final phase, but his cover, there are complications. They suspect him? Michael's voice trembled slightly. They have doubts. That's why they started digging into his past, which led them to you. If they can prove he's been maintaining secret contacts, the implications hung heavy in the room. James Carson had spent 18 months infiltrating a dangerous organization, gathering evidence of crimes that threatened national security. One wrong move, one proven connection to his son, and it would all be compromised. That's why he stayed away, Michael said quietly. Even when Mom died, even on my birthday, he had to make them believe he'd given up everything. Judge Matthews thought about the custody hearing that seemed so long ago now. She'd been ready to terminate a father's rights, thinking him negligent, when in reality, your dad's a hero, she told Michael, and so are you. Most grown-ups couldn't handle what you've been dealing with. Michael clutched his bear tighter. I just want him to come home. Suddenly all the lights in the house went out. Cooper moved with practiced efficiency, checking security systems. They found us, she announced grimly. Multiple teams approaching. Michael immediately shifted into alert mode, all traces of the vulnerable child vanishing. Dad said if they ever caught up to us, there's a message in Bear, something that would force them to back off. A dead man's switch, Cooper realized. Insurance that they won't hurt you, But we have to reach it first, Michael said, his young voice steady despite the danger. And they're not going to make that easy. The hunt was about to enter a new phase. But looking at Michael's determined face, Judge Matthews knew one thing for certain. This extraordinary boy was not going down without a fight. Backup power engaging in 3, 2, 1. Cooper counted down as emergency lights bathed the safe house in a soft blue glow. Through reinforced windows, they could see dark figures moving into position around the property. 6 teams, standard. Infiltration pattern, Michael reported, his voice eerily calm as he clutched his bear. They're not trying to hide anymore. Judge Matthews watched in amazement as the 6-year-old moved through practice security protocols, helping Cooper secure doors and check defensive positions. His father's training was evident in every movement. Michael, Cooper said urgently, we need to know what's in that bear. Whatever message your father left, it might be our only leverage. The boy nodded, carefully opening a hidden seam in the stuffed animal's back. Inside was a small digital device, professionally sealed. Dad said it's called a dead man's switch, Michael explained. If anything happens to me, it automatically uploads everything he's gathered about the organization to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency. Cooper's eyes widened. That's why they can't risk hurting you. Your insurance for your father's entire operation. A voice boomed from outside, amplified by speakers. Federal agents! We have the building surrounded! Still using that fake federal cover, Michael noted disapprovingly. Dad says real agents never announce themselves like that in tactical situations. The judge couldn't help but smile despite the tension. Even facing armed infiltration teams, this remarkable child was critiquing their operational security. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they breach, Cooper estimated, checking her tactical display. Michael, what else did your father tell you about this situation? The boy's face scrunched in concentration. He said if they ever found us, I should activate the bear's secondary protocol. But only if I was absolutely sure they were really the organization. Are you sure now? Michael nodded grimly. They made 3 mistakes. First, the fake federal announcement. Second, they cut power before announcing themselves. Real agents would maintain utilities for negotiation. And third, he pointed to a figure visible through the window. That man, the one directing the teams? Dad showed me his picture. He's high-ranking in the organization. He wouldn't be here unless this was them. Cooper checked the image through her tactical scope. That's Marcus Wells, former CIA gone rogue. Your father's been gathering evidence of his involvement in domestic terror plots. Michael carefully pressed a sequence of hidden buttons on the bear's device. The small screen lit up with a message. Authentication. Accepted. Emergency Protocol Alpha initiated. Begin transmission? Do it, Cooper ordered. The boy pressed yes, and suddenly every phone and computer in the safe house lit up with incoming data. What they saw made even Cooper gasp. Evidence of the organization's operations scrolled across the screens. Weapons, shipments, compromised officials, planned attacks on critical infrastructure. James Carson had compiled an airtight case against one of the most dangerous domestic terror groups in history. Your father's been busy, Cooper murmured, watching. The data flow. This is enough to take down their entire network. And now they know we have it, Michael added. Dad said that's the real purpose of the dead man's switch. Not just insurance, it's leverage. As if on cue, the voice outside spoke again, but this time without the federal pretense. Stand down all teams. I repeat, stand down. The package, it is too hot. Through the windows, they watched the infiltration teams withdraw as quickly as they had appeared. Marcus Wells stood alone in the street for a moment, staring at the house with cold fury, before disappearing into the night. They'll be back, Cooper warned. Different tactics, different approach. But they won't give up trying to contain this leak. No, Michael agreed with a confidence beyond his years. But now they know they can't hurt us. And that means... He trailed off as his device pinged with an incoming message. The text was simple but made the boy's eyes fill with tears. Protocol received. Operation compromised. Coming home. Love, Dad. James Carson had maintained his cover for 18 months, gathering evidence that would save countless lives. But the moment his son activated that dead man switch, his mission had entered its final phase. Your father's breaking cover, Cooper explained gently. He'll have contingency plans, escape routes prepared, but he'll be in extreme danger until he reaches safety. Michael clutched his bear tighter. He'll make it, he promised, and Dad always keeps his promises. The judge watched this extraordinary child, who had faced armed infiltration teams with more courage than most adults would show. His father had trained him well, not just in tactical procedures, but in the strength needed to endure what no child should have to face. What happens now? She asked Cooper. Now, the agent replied, we keep Michael safe while his father completes his exit strategy, and we prepare for the organization's next move. Because this isn't over. It's just changing phases. Outside, the night seemed peaceful again. But they all knew it was just a temporary reprieve. The real battle was about to begin, as a desperate criminal organization tried to contain the evidence James Carson had gathered, while a father raced to reunite, with the son who had just blown his cover wide open, and at the center of it all, a 6-year-old boy held a stuffed bear that contained enough evidence to bring down an empire of corruption. The same boy who had stopped his own custody hearing with 3 simple words, "He's not dead." Michael Carson had kept his father's secret for 18 months. Now he just had to stay alive long enough for their family to be reunited. 5 hours after Michael activated the dead man's switch, the safe house became a hub of federal activity. Agent Cooper coordinated with multiple agencies as James Carson's evidence exposed corruption at levels that shocked even hardened investigators. Another senator implicated, she reported, checking incoming data. Your father's evidence is causing an earthquake in Washington, Michael. The boy sat monitoring police frequencies on a specialized tablet, another skill his father had taught him. They're getting desperate. 3 attempts to hack the data stream already. Judge Matthews, who had refused to leave Michael's side, watched news reports flood in as the story broke across multiple networks. The organization's careful secrecy was unraveling hour by hour. Any word from your father? She asked gently. Michael shook his head, but his expression remained confident. He'll contact us when it's safe. Right now, he's following extraction protocols. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city, James Carson was indeed fighting his way back to his son. His message played across secure channels that only certain agents could access. Asset compromised. Moving to exit protocol Delta. Multiple hostiles in pursuit. Request cleanup at following coordinates. Cooper's phone buzzed with updates from tactical teams. They found 3 organization hit teams taken down across the city. Your father's leaving quite a trail. He's creating distractions, Michael explained, his tactical understanding still surprising the adults. Making them split their forces, waste resources, chasing false leads. The boy's tablet suddenly lit up with a coded sequence. His fingers flew across the screen, decrypting the message with practiced ease. Dad's calling in our backup protocol, he announced. The one we practiced for emergency situations. Cooper leaned forward. What backup protocol? He had friends, Michael explained. Other operators who owed him favors. People the organization never knew about. He's activating them now. Across the city, highly trained operatives who had worked with James Carson in classified operations received long dormant signal codes. Within hours, the hunters became the hunted as the organization's pursuit teams found themselves under attack. They're falling back, Cooper observed, watching tactical feeds. Your father's friends are very effective. Michael allowed himself a small smile. Dad always said the best backup is the kind your enemy doesn't know exists. The safe house's security. System suddenly pinged. Someone was approaching. But instead of tension, Michael's face lit up with recognition at the signal pattern. "That's Uncle Jack," he exclaimed. "Dad's best friend from his Special Forces days." A mountain of a man emerged from the darkness, moving with the fluid grace of a trained operator. Agent Cooper's team cleared him through security protocols. "Hey, Squirt," Jack greeted Michael with careful casualness, but his eyes scanned the room with professional assessment. "Your dad said you might need some extra." "Security. The organization is falling apart," Cooper updated him. "James's evidence has triggered investigations in 3 countries. But their leadership is still active, still dangerous." Jack nodded grimly. "That's why I'm here. James has activated the whole network. Operators he's worked with, people who owe him their lives. We're creating a protective ring while he makes his way back." Michael's tablet pinged again, another coded message. This time, the boy's hands trembled slightly as he decoded it. "Dad's closer," he reported. "But—" He looked up at Jack, worry finally showing through his trained composure. "They've got him pinned down, 3 blocks from here." Jack was already moving, checking weapons with practiced efficiency. "That's why he sent me ahead. Cooper, your tactical team's in position? Ready on your mark. But the organization still has resources, possibly compromised officials we haven't identified yet." "Then we end this tonight," Jack declared. "Before they can rally whatever's left of their network." Michael stood, clutching his bear with its vital evidence. "I'm coming too." "No," several voices said simultaneously. "But I can help," Michael protested. "I know Dad's protocols, his signal patterns, and he'll be looking for confirmation that I'm safe before he makes his final move." The adults exchanged looks. The boy had proven his capabilities repeatedly, shown training and understanding far beyond his years. But he was still just 6 years old. "Your father would never forgive us if anything happened to you," Cooper said gently. "My father taught me that sometimes the most important part of an operation is being brave enough to play your role," Michael countered. "Right now, my role is to help bring him home." Jack studied his best friend's son thoughtfully. "He's right. James will be looking for direct confirmation of Michael's safety. The organization could be faking our signals, but they can't fake the authentication codes only Michael knows. We keep him in the mobile command center," Cooper conceded. "Maximum security, no direct exposure." Judge Matthews watched as Michael immediately shifted into operational mode, gathering specific equipment with practiced efficiency. This child had spent 18 months maintaining perfect cover, protecting his father's mission. Now he would help bring that mission to its conclusion. "Be careful," she told him, as final preparations were made. "Your father has fought too hard to lose you now." Michael's young face showed the same determination she'd seen in the courtroom. "Dad's coming home," he said simply. "And nothing's going to stop that. Not now." Outside, the night hummed with tension as multiple teams moved into position. The organization's desperate pursuit of James Carson was about to collide with a force they'd never anticipated. A network of operators he'd spent years preparing, all activated by a 6-year-old boy's courage in revealing the truth. The final battle was about to begin. The mobile command center hummed with activity as Michael sat monitoring communications, his small fingers flying across specialized equipment with practiced ease. Through tactical feeds, they watched the organization's forces trying to contain James Carson in an abandoned office building. "They've got the building surrounded," Jack reported, checking thermal imaging. "But your dad's got them running in circles inside. Classic James Carson tactics." Michael nodded proudly. "Dad always says the best defense is making your enemy waste. Resources chasing shadows." Cooper coordinated with multiple tactical teams converging on the area. "Local police have been cleared out under federal authority. Streets are empty. Whatever happens next, there won't be civilian casualties." Suddenly, Michael's head snapped up. "Listen." He adjusted radio frequencies, isolating a transmission that sounded like static to most ears. But embedded in the noise was a pattern. "That's Dad's emergency code," he explained. decoding quickly. He's saying... The boy's face paled. Marcus Wells is personally leading the hunt. He's got some kind of dead man switch of his own. Jack cursed softly. If Wells goes down, he'll release. Something damaging. Something James wants to prevent. More than that, Cooper added grimly. Our intelligence suggests Wells has leverage over compromised officials we haven't identified yet. If he exposes them, they'll burn everything to cover themselves. Jack finished, including any evidence of their connection to the organization. Michael's fingers never stopped moving across his equipment. Dad needs a distraction. Something big enough to split their forces, but not so big it makes Wells trigger his failsafe. The adults exchanged looks, once again amazed by this child's tactical understanding. But before they could respond, new thermal signatures appeared on their screens. Multiple vehicles approaching, Cooper reported. Not ours. Organization reinforcements. No, Michael said firmly, studying movement patterns. Look at their approach formation. Those are Dad's friends, the ones he activated. They're using organization protocols to slip through security. He was right. As they watched, the new arrivals smoothly integrated into the organization's perimeter, their deception perfect until the moment they struck. Chaos erupted as sleeper operators James had positioned years ago suddenly revealed themselves. The organization's carefully maintained containment turned into confused, close-quarters combat. Now, Jack commanded, while they're split. Tactical teams moved in from multiple directions, but Michael's attention was locked on a different feed. His father's hidden signal patterns growing stronger. He's moving, the boy reported, his voice tense with excitement and worry. Using the chaos for cover, but Wells is tracking him. He knows Dad's patterns too well. Through surveillance cameras, they caught glimpses of James Carson, a lean, hardened operator moving with lethal grace through the confusion. But Marcus Wells was indeed in pursuit, matching his quarry's tactics with dangerous skill. Wells won't let him go, Cooper observed. He knows James has enough evidence to destroy everything they've built. Then we change the game, Michael said suddenly. His young face showed the same determination they'd seen in the courtroom. Dad's not the only one who knows how to create a distraction. Before anyone could stop him, he opened a channel to the organization's tactical frequency. When he spoke, his voice carried a child's innocence but a warrior's confidence. Mr. Wells, I have a message from my dad. The effect was electric. All combat in the area seemed to pause as Wells's voice crackled back. Who is this? You know who I am. The son you never knew about. The one Dad trusted to protect his evidence while he gathered more against you. Jack moved to stop him, but Cooper held up a hand. She recognized what Michael was doing, using himself as bait, but in a way that gave him control of the situation. You're lying, Wells snarled. James Carson abandoned his family. We vetted him completely. Did you? Michael's voice was steady. Or did you see what he wanted you to see? While I kept his secrets, learned his codes, maintained his dead man's switch. The last 3 words hit home. Through their feeds, they could see Wells freezing in place, realizing the implications. The evidence dump, he breathed. That was you, a child. Dad taught me well, Michael replied. And right now, I'm uploading everything else he gathered. Every name, every operation, every secret you thought was safe. Unless what? Wells demanded. Unless you let him go. Walk away, Mr. Wells. Or I release everything, including the files Dad said would interest the CIA about your activities in Tehran. Dead silence filled the tactical channels. Even James Carson, caught on camera in mid-motion, seemed to be holding his breath. Finally, Wells spoke. You're bluffing. No child could... Michael's fingers flew across his console, and suddenly every screen in the area lit up with highly classified data. Just a taste of what he could release. Dad always said the best operative is the one your enemy never suspects, the boy said calmly. Want to see what else he taught me? The night hung balanced on the edge of a 6-year-old's words, and everyone waited to see if Marcus Wells would believe what James Carson had known all along. that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one you never knew existed. Marcus Wells had spent 30 years in the intelligence community before turning rogue. He'd faced down terrorists, rival agents, and death itself. But now he found himself in a battle of wits with a 6-year-old boy, and he was losing. "You want proof I'm not bluffing?" Michael's voice carried clearly over the tactical frequency. "Check your secure server, the one in Switzerland you think no one knows about." Wells's sharp intake of breath was audible. On their surveillance feeds, they watched him pull out a secure phone, his hands actually shaking. "Impossible," he muttered. "That server is—" "Dad found it 6 months ago," Michael explained calmly. "Said it was sloppy tradecraft to keep everything in one place, even if it was hidden really well." In the command center, Cooper watched in amazement as this child systematically dismantled one of the most dangerous men she'd ever encountered. "He's doing it," she whispered. "He's actually breaking Wells." "James taught him well," Jack replied proudly. "But watch the thermal feeds. Wells is unstable. This could go bad fast." They were right. Wells's body language showed increasing agitation, as Michael continued exposing details of the organization's operations that no one should have known. "You think you're so clever," Wells snarled suddenly, "playing your father's games. But you forgot something crucial, boy. You're not the only one with leverage." He raised his voice, addressing James directly. "Carson, your son's quite impressive. Shame if anything happened to that judge who's been protecting him, or that federal agent, or all those other people whose names I'm broadcasting to my cleanup. Teams right now." Michael's face paled, but his voice remained steady. "You're lying. Classic misdirection. Trying to create panic." "Am I?" Wells's voice turned silky. "Check your feeds, boy. See who's really surrounded." Multiple new signals appeared on their tactical screens. Organization teams had indeed located the mobile command center, moving into position with deadly intent. "Dad always said you'd get sloppy when pressured," Michael replied, his fingers flying across his equipment. "Like now. Using organization frequencies to coordinate your teams, letting us track every move." Wells laughed harshly. "You think that matters? I have enough compromised officials to bury this whole operation. One call, and every piece of evidence your father gathered disappears into classified vaults so deep even Congress can't reach them." "You're right," Michael said quietly. "We can't stop all your corrupt officials, but we don't have to." "What does that mean?" "Dad didn't just gather evidence against the organization. He found something else, something even your friends in high places can't hide." Through their surveillance, they watched Wells freeze. "You're bluffing." "Tehran," Michael said simply. "Dad found out what really happened there, what you did, and that evidence isn't going to law enforcement or Congress. Then where? It's going to your old friends. The ones who've been hunting you since you betrayed them. The ones who never stopped looking for proof of what you did." Wells's composure cracked completely. "You wouldn't. You can't possibly—" "Check your phone again, Mr. Wells. See who's getting copied on all these transmissions." They watched Wells look at his device, his face draining of color, because Michael hadn't been bluffing. Every piece of evidence was being routed through specific channels that Wells's former intelligence colleagues monitored constantly. "Stand down," Wells barked suddenly to his teams. "All units, stand down now." "Smart choice," Michael said calmly. "Dad said you'd make the right decision when you realized what was really at stake." Through their feeds, they watched the organization forces withdraw in confusion. Wells stood alone, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. "How?" he demanded. "How did a child—" "I'm not just a child," Michael corrected him. "I'm James Carson's son, and he taught me that the best way to win isn't always with weapons or violence. Sometimes it's just knowing which truth to tell at the right moment." Movement caught their attention. James Carson emerged from cover, moving with deadly grace to face his former target. Father and son, working in perfect coordination, had just brought down one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in history. But it wasn't over yet, because Marcus Wells was a cornered animal now. And as Michael's father had taught him, that's when people are most dangerous. The final confrontation was about to begin. Chapter 9. Father and Son. It's over, Marcus. James Carson's voice carried across the tactical frequency for the first time in 18 months. My son made sure of that. Through their surveillance feeds, Michael watched his father approach Wells with the measured confidence of a predator. Even after months undercover, James moved with the deadly grace that had made him legendary in the intelligence community. Your son, Wells spat. The secret weapon I never saw coming. A child who brought down my entire organization. He did exactly what I trained him to do, James replied. Protect the evidence, maintain cover, and wait for the right moment to expose everything. Michael's hands flew across his equipment, coordinating with the tactical teams now surrounding the area. His father had taught him these protocols through games and stories, preparing him for exactly this moment. Dad, he transmitted on their private frequency. Wells still has his dead man's switch. If he goes down, I know, son, James replied, softly. You've done your part perfectly. Let me handle this last piece. Wells pulled a device from his jacket, a simple trigger mechanism. One press, he threatened. Every compromised official, every hidden operation exposed. The chaos would destroy departments across 3 agencies. You're right, James agreed calmly. That's exactly what would happen, and that's exactly why you won't press it. You seem very confident. Because my son didn't just find your evidence, Marcus. He found your retirement fund. The numbered accounts, the hidden assets, all of it. Right now, everything you've stolen over the years is being transferred to very interesting places. Wells's face contorted. You're bluffing. Dad never bluffs. Michael transmitted on the open frequency. Check your phone again, Mr. Wells. Watch your life's work disappear in real time. They watched Wells frantically check his device, seeing his carefully hidden fortune vanishing into a web of international transfers. Stop this, he demanded. I'll release everything. Go ahead, James replied. But ask yourself, what happens when your former colleagues discover where that money really came from? The ones who've been hunting you since Tehran? The change in Wells was immediate. The calculated operative vanished, replaced by something desperate and dangerous. I won't go down alone, he snarled, drawing a concealed weapon. If I'm finished. So are you, now, Uncle Jack, Michael transmitted calmly. A single shot rang out. Wells's weapon went flying as Jack's bullet struck it perfectly, leaving the rogue operative unharmed, but disarmed. That's the difference between us, Marcus, James said quietly. I never worked alone. I had people I could trust. Family. Federal. Agents swarmed in, securing Wells as he ranted about hidden evidence and dead man's switches. But Michael wasn't watching that. His eyes were locked on his father, seeing him in person for the first time in 18 months. Command center secure, Cooper reported. Michael, we can move you to... But the boy was already running. All the training, all the protocols fell away as he sprinted toward his father. James turned, his professional demeanor cracking as he saw his son approaching. They met in the middle of the secured area, James dropping to one knee as Michael crashed into his arms. For a long moment, neither spoke. They didn't need to. You did it perfectly, James finally whispered. Every step, every protocol, exactly as we practiced. I never broke cover, Michael replied proudly through his tears. Not until I had to. Not until they were going to give me away. Judge Matthews watched the reunion from the command center, finally understanding everything. The custody hearing that had seemed so straightforward had actually been the final test, forcing Michael to choose between maintaining his cover and losing his father forever. Those 3 words in my courtroom, she mused. He's not dead. They changed everything. They were always going to, Cooper replied. James knew someday Michael would have to make that choice. He trained him not just in tactics and protocols, but in understanding when to break them. Through their monitors, They watched father and son walking back together, both still alert and aware of their surroundings even in this moment of reunion. Some habits wouldn't fade quickly, but something had changed. The weight of secrets and separation had lifted, replaced by the unshakable bond between a father and son who had sacrificed everything to protect others. The operation was over, the organization was finished, and a family torn apart by duty was finally whole again. 1 month after the organization's fall, Judge Matthews sat in her chambers reviewing a very different kind of custody filing. James Carson's reinstatement of parental rights was largely a formality. No one who had witnessed recent events would dream of separating this extraordinary father and son. "The paperwork's just for show," James said, sitting across from her desk while Michael played a tactical awareness game on a specialized tablet. "But we wanted to do things properly this time." "No more cover stories?" she asked with a smile. "Some," Michael replied without looking up from his game. "Dad says we still need to be careful, but not like before." The changes in the boy were remarkable. He maintained his tactical awareness and training, but now there was room for childhood too. His laughter came more easily, his smiles more frequent. "The organization's finished," James reported. "Wells's evidence exposed corruption at levels that shocked even hardened investigators. Thanks to Michael's actions, reforms are being implemented across multiple agencies. And the compromised officials? Being handled quietly. Some countries prefer to deal with traitors without publicity." Michael looked up. "Dad got a new job, teaching other agencies how to spot infiltration. And I get to help sometimes. Under controlled conditions," James added quickly. "No more deep cover operations, just consulting and training." The judge nodded approvingly. Father and son had sacrificed enough for their country. They deserved peace. Agent Cooper arrived with final updates. The Fosters had been cleared of any involvement. They were simply a good family who had wanted to help a child. The court system was implementing new protocols for cases involving potential intelligence matters. "Michael's case has become a training scenario," she explained, "teaching people to look deeper when things don't add up." "Those 3 words in my courtroom," Judge Matthews mused. "They changed everything." "They saved lives," James corrected. Michael's courage in breaking cover exposed more than just the organization. It showed us blind spots in the system, ways to protect other families in similar situations. Michael finally set down his tablet. "Can we go home now? Rex is waiting." "Rex?" the judge asked. "My new dog," Michael explained proudly. "He's a retired military canine. Dad says I've earned the responsibility." James ruffled his son's hair affectionately. "He helps maintain perimeter security. Some habits are hard to break." They rose to leave, but Michael paused at the door. "Judge Matthews, thank you for listening. Most adults would have ignored a kid saying weird things in court. I'm just glad I did," she replied warmly. "You taught me to look deeper when things seem off, to trust that sometimes children know more than we think." Outside her window, she watched father and son walk to their car, both still scanning their surroundings, but now with the relaxed awareness of people who knew they were safe. Michael clutched his tablet in one hand and his father's hand in the other, finally free to be both the extraordinary operative he'd become and the child he still was. The organization was finished, its leaders facing justice, its corrupted officials exposed. But the real victory wasn't in bringing down a criminal empire. It was in the simple sight of a family reunited, a father and son who had sacrificed everything to protect others, finally able to protect each other openly. "He's not dead," Michael had said that day in court. 3 words that had exposed a conspiracy, saved lives, and brought a family back together. 3 words spoken by a child brave enough to break cover when it mattered most. As their car disappeared around the corner, Judge Matthews smiled. In all her years on the bench, she'd never seen anything quite like the Carson case. It had taught her, had taught everyone involved, that sometimes the most extraordinary courage comes in the smallest packages. And somewhere in the city, A 6-year-old boy who had helped bring down a criminal empire was finally getting to do something he'd waited 18 months for, simply being a son with his father. The end.